Zelda title screens. They've often been some of the very best I've seen in video games. At their best, they've been something incredibly magical that so perfectly captures the tone and specialness of the game ahead. I'm thinking of the title screens of Ocarina, Majora, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Link's Awakening, Spirit Tracks. They were really on a roll there with the 3D games title screens, huh? Until Skyward Sword. Yeah, it's not very inspiring, even if, in a sense, it does somewhat capture the game's atmosphere. Breath of the Wild's title screen, essentially a slideshow of official game art, was marginally better because at least the art is beautiful. But still, what happened? These leave much to be desired. I think one of the biggest offenses of both of these title screens is their lack of even the slightest vestige of music. Zelda games, and even those of other Nintendo IPs like Metroid, often had unique songs that were created specifically for the title screen. In all fairness, even Skyward Sword's title screen has the same level of detail as, say, Elden Ring, one of the most well-loved games of the decade. But even there we recall that Elden Ring's title screen at least had some exciting music to accompany it. Don't get me wrong, these title screens for Breath of the Wild and Skyward Sword aren't necessarily a glaring negative towards these games. They are more of the absence of an awesome positive. One of the things that is uniquely Zelda about the series is their title screens, so it was just too bad to not have more iconic title screens for these latest two 3D games. Which has me thinking about the title screen for Tears of the Kingdom. I haven't seen anybody else make a video about this, and my mind has been reeling with ideas, so I'm super excited to share some with you today. Please feel free to share your own ideas down below as well, and let me know which idea of mine is your favorite. Let's start by observing the types of title screens that we've seen in the past, and what they tend to focus on, so we can better brainstorm for Tears of the Kingdom. I think one of the most clear distinctions that exists is that these title sequences often show off either something early game or something mid-game. For example, Ocarina of Time shows something that's only possible in the middle of the game, when things are in full swing, riding Epona as Adult Link. Wind Waker's, on the other hand, literally just pans the camera around the starting island, which is weird to think about, but that goes to show how much the music really enlivens that title screen. So that would be an early game title screen. Link's Awakening then would also be an early game title screen, since its title screen basically shows the prologue to the game. Link encounters a chaotic storm and washes ashore on a mysterious island. A second example of a mid-game title screen would be Twilight Princess, where the Bridge of Eldin is fully intact, and Link is able to ride Epona freely. Majora's Mask's title screen shows events that could technically take place in the early game or mid-game because of the strange nature of time in that game. One other way to distinguish is that some title screens are more about story, and some are more about atmosphere and world. For example, Ocarina's, Wind Waker's, and Twilight Princess's are more about atmosphere or world, whereas that of Majora's Mask and Link's Awakening are more about story. So as you can see, these distinctions are somewhat loose. You could argue that Majora's Mask's title screen is about story or world, for example, but the distinctions are still helpful guidelines for brainstorming for Tears of the Kingdom. The plan is to brainstorm a title screen for each of the 4 types mentioned. Let's start by providing an idea for an early game title screen for the game. We start off with a close-up shot of a clear puddle in a deep cavern, with droplets of water slowly dripping into it. Sounds of the droplets echoing throughout the cavern, as a subtle, eerie, and mystical theme creeps in. There's a splash as Link's brown boots, then Zelda's, step into the puddle. We pan up to see the pair holding up torches to a mural on the wall, followed by an aerial shot of the pair consulting a map or diagram on old brown paper. The echoes of the droplets continue as the aerial shot continues. Over the course of several seconds, the steady sound of the droplets is gradually overtaken by a different steady sound. Harsh, deep, and ominous notes, piercing through the silence at consistent intervals. The camera pans away and rushes through a great distance in a short time, through caverns strewn with luminous stones and wide expanses with more of the architecture that we saw in the initial trailer. The music intensifies over this time, swells, and then plummets again as we come to the shot on screen, or something very similar, as a subtle and chilling rendition of Ganondorf's theme plays in the background. The logo appears. Now for a mid-game idea. We hear a slowed down version of what many are calling the main theme for Tears of the Kingdom, as an image fades into view of Link standing at the edge of a sky island surrounded by golden trees. A dragon billows through the sky in the distance. Link lifts up his altered arm, clenches and unclenches his fist, then looks over Hyrule for a few seconds, before jumping off the island towards the surface. As he rushes downward, the theme quickens its pace and increases in grandeur. The camera pans away and to the right, towards Hyrule Castle in the distance, where ripples of malice are creeping outwards in all directions underneath it. The music becomes somber and slow again as Link exits our view. The scene shifts to a view of the front of the castle, then shifts to a lesser tower of the castle, slowly panning up and inwards until we see the bottom of a balcony where a figure stands, visible only from his torso downwards. Ganondorf, with arms crossed, or perhaps arms upon a blade or trident, waiting. Here also we hear that slow and chilling adaptation of Ganondorf's theme. The screen fades to black and the logo appears. The only hole with this one is that I'm not actually sure if I think Ganondorf will be waiting at the castle again this time around. Presumably he could end up being a little more active throughout the world, and who knows whether they'll actually make this Hyrule Castle the final dungeon for a second time. Well, it's cool to visualize either way. Now for a story-based title screen idea. There's just one problem. The idea I gave for an early game title screen is basically what I would say makes sense for a story-based one as well. Because even the story-focused title screens only show things from the very beginning of the games, so I can't think of anything else other than my earlier cave idea. Because of this, let's call my earlier idea the story-based idea, and briefly describe here another simple early game idea, which opens with a view of thick white clouds. The camera moves through the clouds, and we see in the foreground what is presumably the starting island, and pan through a handful of other views of the island. In one shot, we see Link sitting by a fire looking out over Hyrule. In another shot, the tower that we've seen in many trailers and promotional materials is highly emphasized. In another, we see a still shot like this, or maybe like this, but without Link or the construct in the frame. Perhaps another shot could be this, minus Link. We end with the camera returning itself into another bank of clouds. This idea would be sort of like a slower version of the Wind Waker title screen where we pan around Outset Island. And then we come lastly to a world or atmosphere based idea. In a title screen that harkens back in some ways to title screens of the past, we see Link riding on a horse through Hyrule Field at night, with the malice-ridden Hyrule Castle hovering in the background. An imperishable, haunting reminder of the state of the kingdom. One or two fragments of rock can be seen falling from the sky in the background. The shot changes to one of Link, rising up on a recalled fallen rock, shooting towards the heavens as the camera pans up to a blood moon among a sea of stars. with the shadows of sky islands visible in the distance. The logo appears against the sky. I'll just throw in here one more random idea, which is that I feel like they could make a nice atmospheric title screen using a good handful of the shots from the first trailer, combined with an altered version of the mysterious music that plays throughout it, and you're all set. That would work great if they wanted something minimalist, but that was still better than just putting on a slideshow of concept art. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed. This is a video that I thought it would be fun to make, but in no way do I claim that I would actually have any competency when it comes to designing a title screen. We're likely to get one of two things: another uneventful title screen like that of Skyward Sword or Breath of the Wild, or a more classic title screen that Nintendo knows way better than me how to put together, way better how to properly balance cinematography, pacing, music, etc. But have some fun with me and throw in some ideas of your own down below, or suggest improvements on my ideas. It's pretty clear that most of these ideas derive significantly from trailer footage, but of course that's most of what I have to draw on for this. So let me know which idea of mine you'd most like to see. And thank you all for watching, and have a fantastical day.